In the Know, a radio program talking to the newsmakers in Ogle, Lee, DeKalb counties and beyond, keeping you in the know. Here's your host, Charles Van Horn.
Good morning, and joining us in studio with the City of Rochelle, Sam Tesreau. Good morning.
Good morning, Charles.
Lots of things going on in the City of Rochelle, and in your case, a brand new hat you're wearing for a while. Interim City Manager Jeff Fagenschuh went off to greener pastures, as it were, and you've slid into that role for the time being. You worked a lot with all different facets of the city anyway, being sort of responsible for the engineering. So you knew lots of all the moving parts, but there's a lot of pieces, isn't there?
There absolutely is. I've had an opportunity to pull the curtain back on the city manager's office now, and I have a new appreciation for that role. I certainly do. But I certainly appreciate the fact that the council has put their trust in me for this interim time to keep things moving forward operationally, and the number of projects that we have coming ahead of us.
Lots of things happening in the city. But first, a little bit about you. When did you start working for the city?
In 2003, I came on as a city engineer under then city manager Joe Salitros.
And where'd you go to college at?
SIU in Carbondale.
All right, Saluki. Yeah. So, and studying engineering and like civil engineering, things like that?
Yes, sir.
So, how many hours of coursework is spent studying gravel?
Well, we call it materials.
Yeah.
But there's a number of credit hours. It's been so long, I'll be honest with you. I don't recall all the credit hours.
I don't think anything's changed much in the world of materials or gravel.
But civil engineering includes a wide variety of disciplines.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm a civil engineer, so I'm one of the nice engineers. So,
yeah. But making everything work. And again, it goes down to ripping a hole in the ground, knowing what's under the ground, stacking stuff on top of it, and hope it doesn't fall over.
That's right. There's a lot of unknowns that goes into design, but of course we try to mitigate a lot of those unknowns with tests and that sort of thing to begin the design work.
Now, the Rochelle City Engineer, what exactly departments do you sort of oversee in your old position, as it were, before City Manager? What were some of the things that you looked after as City Engineer? What were some of the components or construction things or maintenance things that your department handled?
Yeah, so as a city engineer, I'm primarily responsible for transportation-related new infrastructure projects and or maintenance, large maintenance type projects. Of course, the Public Works Department does routine maintenance on all of our infrastructure in town that the city owns or is on city right-of-way. However, a big part of that is to develop funding for those projects as well. I mean, the city has a number of revenue sources, but we also count on state and federal funding to help bolster those revenues too. And without that funding, it's impossible to do the number of projects that we do. The expense of infrastructure has gone through the roof. Every year we see an increase of anywhere between 3 and 15%, just depending on the type of project. And then, of course, the availability of materials and things that go into that project sometimes become difficult too.
And never mind the contractors and the bid process and all that stuff. Talking a bit about transportation and infrastructure and funding, people think of Rochelle as sort of this big splotch, you know, at the intersection of I-39 and I-88 and 251 and 38. And people kind of think that within those boundaries, you guys control it all. But there's lots of things right through the city limits you can't touch, or at least you can't touch unless it's really broken.
That's right. Yeah. So Route 38, Route 251 that bisect our community are under the state's control and have always been. We do have a maintenance agreement with IDOT on portions of those two routes, but it is maintenance only. So that may include pothole patching, maybe restriping, maybe helping to plow a section, miscellaneous storm sewer improvements and that sort of thing. But it does not include reconstruction of all those facilities along those routes. And, you know, we've been in contact with IDOT over the years on a couple of projects, one including the DDI.
That's the diverging diamond. That's going to be the new X pattern there, 38 over I-39.
Yes. Yeah, I call it kind of the figure eight. But yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I use
it's okay. I can translate
terms.
I can translate the nerd speak for you as we go along. But yeah, the DDI, or the diverging diamond thing that's going to be at 38, that is... It's easy right now. They've got the shoulders nice and wide. Everything looks great. There's apparently free large blocks of concrete out there. If you're interested, I'm sure the state will let you take those. But that's all going to be going away, and they're going to be reconfiguring that. Now, the city did have some responsibilities with that because you have infrastructure going both sides of I-39.
We do. So the state, it's roughly about a $20 million project when you kind of round it up. But the city saw some opportunities along with this project to incorporate highway lighting into the job, because that's not typical for IDOT to incorporate highway lighting. They may incorporate intersection or interchange lighting, but it's very limited. So we saw an opportunity there to expand our highway lighting, very similar to what we did in front of Walmart, just east of Karen Road, about almost 3 years ago now. And so we want to expand on that. So the next phase of it will be basically from just west of DeMint Road to Pilot Travel Center that was built several years ago. And so this is also an opportunity now for us to link both sides of the I-39 corridor with a pedestrian facility too. And we call that Complete the Streets. So that's something that I push for as part of this project, because we are a rural community, but we're not. I mean, we're right here at the intersection of two major interstates, 39 and 88. And we certainly want to develop into that community that appeals to a lot of people.
So when are you going to reach out to Creston to complete the sidewalk then all the way over? Is that little off in the future maybe?
It is, yeah. We're going to focus on the city limits right
Just
now.
the city limits. And again, about the roads, it is a topic that comes up online all the time, that people are saying their vehicles are falling apart anytime they try to venture north-south or east-west. And as you've said, that is the state of Illinois' responsibility, and it isn't like you guys haven't asked.
We haven't. And I know you're referring to the Illinois Route 251 improvements.
Yeah.
And that letter went out from my office back in 2004. So it's been a minute since that's happened. And there have been a lot of conversations, a lot of public meetings, a lot of status meetings with IDOT staff. And as you can imagine, the turnover over those years in IDOT staff. So I feel like I'm kind of the missing link right now. To IDOT and of course the city, and I have limited years to try to convince them to get going on the project. So, and
there are people who also don't understand the scope and the scale. And as you talk about the prices of everything going up, this would have been half priced if it was done 21 years ago.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. So when we initially started talking about the project, it was $6 million. And now we're upwards in the neighborhood of $14 million for the job.
And it's a lot more than just smoothing out the rough spots and maybe leveling an intersection. Rochelle was built with that corridor being there. And so city engineers in the past buried or hung everything up and down that corridor within 10 foot of the roadway.
Yeah. So there's a lot of utilities, and there's been many more added just in the past couple of years with all the telecoms.
Yeah.
We've all seen them out there, putting the cable in the ground. And so
they might sweat a little bit if you roll it there with a backhoe and start digging a trench.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, but there's also city utilities out there, water main, sanitary sewer, electric, fiber optic. And that's actually going to be part of the city's responsibility, is to relocate and or reconstruct the water main and then some miscellaneous sanitary sewer. Most of the electric is out of the way. There may be a spot here or there that we're going to have to adjust under the road, but for the most part, it's primarily water main and sanitary sewer. And the city's already starting to plan for those improvements once we get the green light on when the construction is actually going to happen.
And this affects a lot of businesses and property development up and down that stretch as well, because a lot of places, I assume, are pumping their brakes on doing stuff onto 251, even some city-developed property like Hickory Grove, you guys are kind of waiting until 251 is turned upside down before you start because you got to know where everything's going to land.
You're absolutely right, Charles. And as you're aware, the city has been considering a drainage easement on the back side of that Hickory Grove property that you just mentioned for stormwater detention needs to help alleviate some of the ongoing flooding that we've had in the past along 251. So if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. And we certainly want to work hand in hand with IDOT to accomplish those things and make sure that we get a good product in the end.
And if and when that project does happen, all those businesses are going to get nice new aprons and approaches and all that stuff. And
it's going to be amazing. So basically, we're going from a 2-lane road to 5 lanes. So we'll have 2 northbound, 2 southbound, bi-directional down the middle. So it'll provide for, safe access to those businesses or safer access to those businesses. And then there's curb and gutter and there's sidewalks, and it just urbanizes everything through there and cleans it up.
And this will really be from basically Starbucks northward is sort of the project zone.
Yeah. So in 2010, actually, the first phase of that project was completed as a joint project between the city, Ogle County, and IDOT. And it was the Greater Flag Road 251 intersection. And that took it down to about Fairview. So that's where the project will start from there, and then we'll continue south then towards Starbucks, as you just mentioned.
Another 251 matter, and this is one with the city and city-owned property and a lot of things. It's something I've noticed. Pedestrians, you talk about pedestrian access on 38, getting over to Pilot. Southbound, though, getting over the railroad tracks on that overpass. Every now and then you see a pedestrian up there. That's a dangerous place to be. They shouldn't be walking there. We know tracks obviously get blocked sometimes. And then, of course, there's no sidewalks down to the south zone there along 251. Again, not a primary pedestrian walkway or, by design, but that's something that people have been asking for, and you see a need for it. But there's a lot of logistic problems there too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned, the overpass there on 251, and, hindsight is 2020, right? So back in 1980, when that overpass was constructed, it would have been a good idea to simply have a separate pedestrian overpass cantilevered off the one side. Today, that becomes a lot more complicated with the actual design of the bridge and everything. Not that I haven't inquired about it. We've actually discussed a separate, not connected pedestrian walkway over the 2 railroads because every pedestrian crossing that we have is at grade across the railroad today. And so we don't have that option.
And Rochelle has a storied history of tragedies involving pedestrians and the tracks. There's a lot of trains going through the area, and if there's a way to get people up and over safely, it should be something that's considered.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And we've had those conversations. I can tell you that takes a long time to go through that, especially with 2 railroads, IDOT, and trying to get the funding and just a rough estimate of cost for an overpass separated crossing like that would probably be in the neighborhood of $15 million.
What about like a large slingshot or a trebuchet? Just people launch themselves up and over. Would that be a less expensive solution?
Safe either. So
we could just put a big sand trap in by the golf course. It would work. Sam Tesreau in studio, Rochelle engineer, still doing the engineering duties along with attempting to keep up with the city manager role.
Yes.
Because, again, you're juggling cats and bowling pins and bowling balls up in the air.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm still in the role of city engineer, city manager, and I'm also the city's railroad manager as well, and I took on those duties in early 2025. So that's kind of a part-time job. That's about 20 hours a week. So, I'm working 7 days a week.
So the railroad manager job, as I've always asked anybody who's involved with the railroad, do you have a model railroad in your basement, and is this just a childhood fantasy coming true?
I'm not a railroad engineer, and I don't play one on TV either.
There you go. So you just make sure the tracks have a place to be.
Yeah, so we actually had a pretty significant project that was substantially built because it's not entirely complete yet, but we'll finish up the restoration in the spring. And that was the Rochelle Intermodal Transload Center.
Yeah.
And we extended the tracks out there for more storage. And then we have a significant amount of concrete pavement improvements that we did out there for laydown And so it is really, truly a transload facility now. And I'm hoping that will spur not just bulk products coming in, but a transload industrial community out there. Very similar to, and you might be familiar with this, like Baxter Road.
Yeah.
Off of I-39, and to provide more jobs for people, and obviously more tax revenue for the city, and with the addition of rooftops and that sort of thing up there. Mm-hmm.
Sam Tesreau, city engineer and interim city manager, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Charles.
Thank you for listening to this week's In the Know. The program returns next week at this time with another great conversation with someone from your community.